Hello and welcome to the Glassgirls Network with me, Jonathan. Today we're doing a Nottingham Forest preview ahead of the game on Sunday, and I'm delighted to be joined by someone who I've been chatting to for about 18 months now on social media, Ollie. Welcome, Ollie. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, John. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thank you for joining me. I think it's great that we can do this, two fans getting together. And obviously, we look after the Stourbridge here, Glassgirls Network. You've recently signed up to a football supporters club. You're part of the Forest Women's Fancast. Just tell me a little bit about yourself first, Ollie.
Well, I've been a Forest fan for 32 years now. So since I was 6. So while it's been enjoyable to see, it's enjoyable to see the team back in the men's team back in the Premier League. But I'm old enough now to remember when we was there the last time, and in Europe, um, I've been following the women's team for what we're in now, maybe 2 years. So not as long, obviously, and I've sort of taken my interest in Forest is more towards the women's side now. To be perfectly honest, I enjoy watching, especially now what we've got Collie Davis. I love the football she's playing; it's really impressive, and it's a good journey to be on as the owner wants us to progress from Tier 3 to the WSL. That's the aim, and it's great to be a part of that.
Yeah. I think it's crazy how involved at like the two ends of the spectrum here. You know, Stourbridge, probably not many people across the country have even heard of Stourbridge, let alone pick us as favourites in the league. Whereas you're right up there. I remember when I first started to watch Stourbridge, even though we were in the leagues lower, we were like the juggernauts. We were the ones expected to win the league, and we did have an amazing amount of money, but compared to the local area, you know, we could afford to pay expenses, and we attracted a lot of decent players in the area because of that. And obviously, when they joined, it was a great atmosphere when they joined. So we got promoted to Tier 6 to Tier 5, 5 to 4, 4 to 3, and then all of a sudden, bang, you're up against the likes of Forest, Burnley, Wolves, Stour, Derby, and all these.
It's such a
It
harsh. It's such a
is,
harsh learning curve.
yeah. I
The
think we've done.
expectation is massively different.
It is 100%. I think it's just so different being in Tier 3 to Tier 4. You know, we've done so well, I think, winning Tier 4 in that first season of us being there. But then all of a sudden, we just got smacked with reality there, I think. How do you
Yeah,
find being one of the juggernauts?
I mean, in last season, I'm not gonna lie, it was frustrating to watch Newcastle run away with it. And full credit to them, they did exactly what teams in the Premier League and the Championship should be doing. So there's never any criticism of Newcastle. And I think now we're in that same position. We're expected to be winning. We're expected to be winning games week in, week out. We went to Stoke and Wolves away and won. That's now the expectation. Whereas last season, it probably wouldn't have been. And obviously, I'm not playing, but that's going to be a pressure on the team and fans as well, because fans are just going to come expect us to do well, and if we don't, then from the outside, the sort of jokes on us, and while that's unfortunate, you can. That's the reality of being the team or one of the 2 or 3 teams that everyone wants to beat. And what I don't like is when we played Calzer and we beat them 7-0. And to me, there was no shame in Calzer in that. They set up to try and keep us out. It didn't work. And it probably wouldn't work 99 times out of 100. But it just shows the disparity that's in this division. And it's not the sort of haves and have nots is very stark. And because there's only one promotion place, you're seeing good players and good teams get frustrated. And there should be a better pathway. So teams like Stourbridge at this level have more competitive seasons, because it's never any fun going and tanking teams 7-0 every week. We beat you on the first day of the season last season 7-0 on Jamie Lee's debut, and then we tanked Sporting Calzer at home now, and that's not the most fun thing to watch. Make an exception for Wolves at the weekend. But
Well, you're absolutely right. I spoke about it myself, and I don't want to keep going over old ground, but there's so many fixtures that I'm looking at on the list, and I'm thinking to myself, yes, let's just enjoy the occasion, but we're not going to get anything from there. You even look at like the Premier League, and even like the bottom few in the Premier League can pull up upsets. And you can't do that in our league. It's so hard to compete, isn't it? There's even like a difference between the Premier League backed clubs, and you just hit the nail on the head there with the Wolves game. Both big clubs, and you still end up winning away with it there. You did talk a little bit about last season. Obviously, you watched the Stourbridge games. What were your first thoughts of Stourbridge? Obviously, we played you away, so you was at home. I mean, that was our first game in Tier 3, so we came with good spirits. And then obviously you came to the War Memorial Ground as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, so I really enjoyed going to the War Memorial Ground, and it's kind of, I don't know if this is a niche reference for your channel, but it takes me back to watching WrestleMania 24, where Shawn Michaels looks Ric Flair bang in the eye and says, "Sorry, Rick, I love you," and then smashes him. That's how I feel about it. I genuinely enjoyed going to the War Memorial Ground. I didn't know a lot about Stourbridge when we played you at home, and then Charlotte Greengrass scored a hat trick, and you kind of expected that. Ivy and I was sat next to, well, at the time at least, Jamie Lee's partner, and she was telling us about the fact that she'd just joined from hashtag maybe like 2 weeks before, and she'd not managed to meet the team.
Yeah.
And she's not going to get to one training session, and you think that's it's not. I mean, that's how it is in this division, but it's like, I don't want to sound disrespectful, because I'm not that at all. But those games to us at that stage were kind of it was a bit of a walkover. Same with Filed, and then but when we went to Filed and when we went to Stourbridge, it was a lot more difficult. We found it easier at home, but then we went away to go from. I mean, beat Stourbridge 7-0 and then 2-0. Filed was 5-0, and I can't remember. I think it was 3-0 or something like that. But it was a lower aggregate score. Like I said, I didn't know much about Stourbridge when you turned up at Grange Park, but one thing that I remember stood out to me is that noticing that Jamie Lee didn't let her head drop at all, and neither did a lot of the players. And you have to have a lot of respect for that, because it can't be easy just turning up. If you're going to go to our day jobs to know that you're going to be sort of, for want of a better phrase, wading through treacle, you think, how often would you want to phone it in? And they didn't. And there's so much respect for that. And I really don't want that to sound condescending, because it's not supposed to.
No. And Jamie Lee, we're huge fans of Jamie Lee, and it was very, I want to say upsetting, but we were disappointed that when she decided to leave at the end of the season. I think it was just on her last home game, so we still had one game to go where we already knew that she was going to leave, and it must be so hard for a goalkeeper, because she was one of our players of the season. She got several votes last season as player of the season. And now she's got to Halifax, where she's up against it again. But what I will say, and you'll see this yourself, our new goalkeeper, Harriet Grimshaw, has really close to filling some big shoes at the moment, big boots at the moment. So Harriet Grimshaw's come in, very vocal, great shot stopper already, and thankfully we have got a very decent replacement in her.
Did Jamie Lee have to leave because of a RAF placement?
Yeah, that was what she said. So there's a lot of travelling, especially midweek games. You couldn't really do without it being such a rush. The curfew to get back to base by midnight. So she chose to join a more northern club. Yeah.
Listen, I know her and her partner were in the RAF when you came here, so that's kind of what I assumed it'd be to do with the placement. So that's why she left hashtag, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've been through a lot, Stourbridge, over our summer. How about your summer? How would you describe that, going to full time and now, of course, playing at the City Ground?
it's kind of an awkward setup there. But yeah, well, I don't think Arsenal could have gone any better. It started quite sadly by losing who were key players. Luan Worsley went back to Birmingham. I don't think there was any doubt that was going to happen. And then May Moncaster, Olivia Cook, and Neve Reynolds and LJ all left, as well as Aja. And over the years, they've been key players for us. So it started off like a bit of a downer. And I think that was before we announced it was going to go full time. So I don't think that was in the offing then. So we're sort of thinking how these players are going to get replaced. And then when the club announced we're going to go like full time, I think there's 18 full time slots. And then next season it'll be 25, 6. It'll be like completely professional. And that's incredibly exciting because it's where, at the same time, it's where Premier League teams should be. Like just for finishing like bottom of the Premier League, you're looking at hundreds of millions of pounds. So it's not like any organisation in that division is skint. So we should be doing that. And I'd say the same for Wolves and like Burnley and Stoke. I mean, they're run by billionaires as well. So there's no shortage of money floating about, but it was exciting. And then when that announcement came through, then the new players start to come in. And then we're looking at players of sort of some WSL experience, but mainly championship experience. So like Mel Johnson, Cara Hamilton, Charlie Wellings. I mean, Bridget Galloway joined, and I think 17 goals she scored for Newcastle last season. So while we started to lose goals with May, when Charlotte eventually moved, and Luan, we replaced them quite quickly. And players were just coming through the door every few days, and that doesn't happen very often at this level. And that is promising. Looking at the squad now compared to what it was this last season, I mean, it's unrecognisable, but it's undoubtedly better. I don't think there's anyone that would have watched the last couple of games. I mean, there's only been 2 home games, including the League Cup game, but I don't think anyone who would have watched the Wolves game on Sunday and said this is not an exceptionally better team than it was 12 months ago. And got to give the club credit for that. From Evangelos to Amber down to Carly, all those, it's working out, and it's obviously exciting, and it raised a lot of expectations. And you mentioned about the City ground, and I'm glad that announcement has been made for all 11 league games, because we've played 4 times before the season, 4 or 5 times, and we've only won 1 before then. And I always felt that, well, I've been going to the City ground for years, but it felt like a neutral venue, and that felt the same when we went to the Bet365 at the start of this season, and we went to Pride Park last season. They're essentially neutral venues when you play there once or twice. It'd be better for us to have played Newcastle and Derby at Grange Park, but these were set piece occasions. There was a big crowd.
Yeah.
And I don't know this for sure, but if it was me, I'd be feeling the expectation that you've got to sort of keep those people coming, because we had 6,000 against Derby, then you've got 400 the next week. So those people aren't coming back. So now we're doing it. Now we're playing every league match there. Hopefully, you won't see 6,000 every week, but if we can get 1 to 2,000 and get people consistently coming through the door, that's only going to be more promising for the club and better for the players.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting debate, isn't it? And we've had it for many a season. Now, where it was more closer to the WSL. Manchester United obviously never played at Old Trafford, and then maybe like the second or third season they played once or twice, and now it's kind of an expectation to play 3 or 4 times. And it is a good debate to have, and it's interesting that you said that about the Newcastle and Derby game. Would it have been better to have played it at a ground where they're more used to? But then on the flip side, it's about whetting the appetite as well, isn't it? And just seeing how it would do. And also, there's a lot of things to factor in as well, isn't there? Like, for example, does it clash with a men's game? Is it a game that you want fans to go to if you're likely to lose. I mean, Man United have played Everton at Old Trafford a few times, probably because they're likely to win. However, if they keep on playing Chelsea there each week, there's a possibility that they'll lose. So is that a great advertisement? Not that it probably matters to the club because they're bringing in the money, so they probably don't look at that kind of thing. However, fans do.
But that's it. It was Derby first, and then Newcastle, and we had 6,000 in for that. And to be fair, we outplayed them for most of the game, but the first 10 minutes or so, it was dreadful. We conceded twice, and then we struggled after that. Holly Mander scored a penalty just before half time, but Derby were resilient, and they had a really good second half. And I mean, it was the first time my little girl has seen us lose, and she went out in tears. But I think as a 3-year-old, it's like it is what it is. But I think when you've got over 6,000 people seeing Derby expecting to tank them, fairly or unfairly, and then we get beat, and it's like, well, there'll be a lot of people who think, oh, they're rubbish. Whereas if we'd have played like Fylde at home, probably would have got less tickets in, but probably would have got a better result. It's like you said, there's so many factors. It's very difficult to come down on one side and just conclusively say one's better than the other.
So you've had like loads of players join. You've gone full time. How do you think the season's going so far for you?
Brilliant. Well, I mean, we've scored 22 times and conceded once, and that was on Sunday, and that was sort of a poor goal to concede. I mean, Amber Hughes is a great player, but I think the marking could have been a bit better. But anyway, we went to Stoke, and I think I got a bit of stick on Discord for predicting that Forest would drop points at Stoke, away at Stoke, Wolves, Rugby, and Burnley. And then we went to Stoke and won. Very patient. It was a much more patient performance than last season. We wasn't forcing any moves. We played that first half, that played out to a 0-0, and then continued playing, stretch to play, and then got the rewards at the end of it. And then Stoke once it sort of knocked them down once, it became a little bit more comfortable. Then we had I think Cowes was first, but then beat Cowes at home 7-0. Beat Notts County 6-0 in the League Cup, and then went to Wolves. And even at 3-0 on Sunday, I was still like, nah. And then once Sophie scored the fourth one, it was a bit more comfortable. And that sounds weird, but last season was a bit of a disaster. So we've got goals all over the pitch. Sophie, Bridget, Charlie, and Melissa are all contributing goals at a decent rate. Charlie and Mel on 6 in all competitions, and we've got goals in midfield. And on the first game of the season against Stoke, I mean, we won mainly thanks to Nat Johnson at left back scoring twice. So we've got goals across the pitch, which is something we didn't have last season. So I don't think this could have been going any better, to be honest.
Yeah. Yes, the way I look at it from you guys, have Burnley and Rugby, or have they kind of impressed you? Or I think a lot of people were sleeping on Rugby. I think Burnley was one of the ones that people was kind of naturally expecting, but Rugby coming across from Tier 3 South.
I mean, I don't know a lot about Rugby, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I know some of their players. I know, obviously, they've got May Moncaster now. And I know that Yasmin Mosby used to play for us, and she played against us at the City Ground last season with Derby. But I didn't know a lot about them. So starting with them, people have told me that they're a really good team, and they finished at 3rd or 4th last season in a really competitive Southern Premier Division. So I was kind of expecting them to be up there. I didn't know they'd be tanking teams like 9-0, or was there 9 or 10 on the opening day? I can't remember which one was which.
Was it 10 against Halifax, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't expecting that. Burnley, I mean, we beat them at Grange Park last season, but they beat us at their ground earlier in the season. I think Luann Worsley made her debut, and she was sent off after 14, 15 minutes, which didn't help. But the way Burnley and Rugby have started isn't dissimilar to what I expected. I don't know what commitment Burnley as a football club has made to that team. I don't know if they've what the status of their contracts are, but they're a really good team. I mean, they finished second last season. So
Yeah.
if you looked at it on paper from the start of the season, you would Burnley have got just as much of a expectation to be up there than Forest have.
Yeah.
And Rugby, it's hard. It's unfair to say surprised because I don't know much about them, but they've definitely impressive.
I was looking at those results, but because of the opposite end of the table. So obviously Burnley played Hull first game of the season. As you just mentioned, Rugby played Halifax, and those are the teams that Stourbridge are going to be around towards the bottom of the league this year. And I was getting excited, even though we lost to Wolves 4-0. Weekend after that weekend, really good, really happy because we only conceded 4. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Halifax dropped into the mix. We always knew someone like Hull would be there or thereabouts towards the bottom, being like a newly promoted club. But to see Burnley and Rugby smash those teams the way they did, but I think it got exaggerated. So I think a lot of people then thought, oh, okay, well, Halifax and Hull are really bad, Burnley and Rugby are really good, when really it's probably just like somewhere in the middle where Rugby and Burnley won't win every game 10-0. Halifax and Hull certainly won't lose every game 9 and 10-0, as Stourbridge found out on the weekend when we lost to Hull. So I think that's the whole point of the league, isn't it? 22 games and it averages out at the end of the season. But for me, it's been a very interesting start, but I think everything's been very exaggerated because the top has been against the bottom and there's not been too many mid-table clashes. And when there has been, it's been like a draw. For example, Albion against Liverpool Feds,
That's
1-1.
what I was thinking of. Yeah, 1-1, wasn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned a few players there. So players for us to watch then. So I know good Forest are, and I'm not going to make any predictions on the scoreline. I don't think that's fair either way. However, what can Stourbridge fans expect to see then? Like, what kind of players are on show, and how do Forest kind of attack? What can we look out for?
I can't see the lineup being different from the Wolves game.
Hmm.
So we play a 4-2-3-1 and very aggressive, but also very patient. Like in the Notts County game, the Stoke game, and even we didn't score in the first half, and Calza was like 2 in the first half, which is not nothing. But we're more patient this season. I think we're not trying to show like the class that some of the class have got on the ball in the back at the back, like Nat Johnson and Molly Green and Leno. We try and play out from the back, and having a player of Kate Longhurst stature, and I still can't believe we've got a player like her. Kate Longhurst in our team, it's incredible. So someone who's equally as composed and doesn't rush the play, so you won't, and she sits alongside Millie Chandarana, and again, they're not box to box midfielders. We've got Freya Thomas ahead of them with a front three to do that work. But what Stourbridge fans can expect to see when it's not 100 miles an hour. And that's not to say it's not good. I really enjoy it, but it's patient, it's composed, it's disciplined. And if it gets to 0-0 at half time, for example, they won't worry about it. I think last season we saw a lot of times where they're trying to force situations that weren't there. Whereas I think now with the players have got, say, for example, Charlie Wellings, Melissa Johnson, and Sophie Domingo, they're getting goal contributions of like 1 every 60, 70 minutes.
Right.
We know there's goals there. So we're seeing a lot more calm build up from the back, through the middle, and out wide, and then try and stretch the play out wide. Sophie Domingo and Charlie Wellings have been very disciplined on the wings, and we know they can beat defenders. We saw Wolves as fullbacks really struggled to deal with Sophie on Sunday, and she's definitely one to watch out for. She's just been getting better and better over the last couple of seasons. The contributions have gone up and up. And I think now with more contact time and more coaching, she's just going to excel.
Yeah.
We have, so in a nutshell, we've got quality across the pitch, and we've recruited really well. And we won't. I mean, if we come up with chances, we'll take them. But if we're not like 5-0 up by 20 minutes, nobody's going to panic.
Yeah.
I think there's some of that last season with with players that are less experienced at the top level, whereas players like Mel Johnson have been playing in the Championship for years.
Yeah. I think you mentioning that, it rings a bell for me. Like, so we've played Wolves and we played Burnley. The Burnley game, we actually went 1-0 up. Yes, it was a penalty, but we went 1-0 in at half time, 1-0 up at half time against Burnley.
That was really good.
Yeah, and Burnley had chances, don't get me wrong, but they weren't necessarily clear-cut chances, and I think we've done very well to hang on, I guess, but like hang on in a very positive way. You know, we've done very well to keep it 1-0 up at half time. So, you know, maybe we can hope that we can get through a whole half. I know last year when you came to the Memorial Ground, I think it was 2-0 at half time, and then you couldn't score a game for the whole of the second half, and that felt so much like a victory for the Stourbridge fans holding on and not conceding a goal for a whole half. And you know, these are things the little things I'm kind of, you know, clinging on to a little bit. Sorry, just was you going to say something there, Ollie? No, sorry. I was just thinking of something that you mentioned earlier about you say you pass it out from the back. Have you found that some of the top teams like kind of pressed you, or did they kind of let you play out, or did they try and track you down? How did that kind of go?
Stoke didn't press us very much. They sat back in a sort of mid block.
Okay.
And let us play. Wolves, I think, tried to press us, but the way Lino and Molly were spraying passes from their side, there was what's the word? Lost the word now.
Oh, no.
It's basically playing crossfield passes. I've lost the words.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Crossfield passes, and we're getting in behind defenders and Sophie was getting in behind defenders very quickly. And I think in their attack, Amber Hughes, it was her first. I don't know if it was her first game of the season, but I know she was on holiday before then, so she wasn't. I don't think she was match ready. Charlotte Greengrass was playing on the wing, which she wasn't as effective for us last season when Luan Worthy was in the middle and Charlotte was on the wing. That didn't really work out for us. She's not that sort of player, so I don't think their press wasn't very strong. So we could get around. We could play around them a lot more comfortably than I would have thought, and certainly a lot more comfortably than it would if the Wolves team had that contact time that we do. We was able to tie them quite quickly, and there was less aggressive in the press after that. I think Tammy George was trying to like show her aggressive side, but I don't think it really phased Kate or Millie at all.
Yeah.
So there's history there from last season at our place. But we've probably had on paper the tougher start, and I don't think anyone's really pressed us too aggressively to the point where we can't play our game. I mean, Carl's was a different story, Notts County was a different story. But Stoke sat back more than I expected them to. And I think Wolves tried, but unfortunately for them, it was just too quick to zip the ball across the pitch and then get out wide, as Carly likes us to do, much more effectively than we probably would have been last season.
Yeah. Just one more for myself. So, mate, just before we wrap up, just your thoughts on the rest of the season. Then, so what do you expect to see? Do you see teams fading away at the top, or do you see other teams gradually getting into it? You mentioned you're having a tough start. Stoke have had a massively tough start. You know, playing rugby, Burnley, and yourself. I think it's Burnley or Wolves. I can't remember, but they've had three big games. You know, so can you see at the top kind of being the top three?
I can see the top three staying as it is in one way, shape, or form. The expectation for Forest, and I really don't. I'm always sort of mindful of being the one that says this now because it would have been the same at Newcastle last season, but I think the expectation is that we will go up. That's the expectation that's been set.
Mm-hmm.
That's the expectation that comes with the investment that Mr. Marinakis has put in, and what Carly expects. I think she's an incredible coach, and her standards for the team are continually evolving. So I think I would expect us to go up, and that's not to be sort of disrespectful to Burnley and Rugby, because they've got, if we don't perform on 1 or 2 games, they can take that. It's going to be that close, and that's where we scored 7 against Calza, and then Burnley and Rugby got 10 and 9. Those margins are going to matter. We won the league on goal difference before with Wolves, so we've got to be aggressive against Stourbridge on Sunday, because that's the metrics that are going to define our season.
Yeah.
I do expect us to go up. But I do expect Burnley and Rugby to be around us. Less so Stoke now, and unfortunately less so Wolves. And I think that's not because of any fault in Dan McNamara or any of the players. They've got some incredible players. If we could have the likes of Amber Hughes, it would be great. But I think because of the lack of investment and the sort of inertia that the team have been given, I can't. And what I saw on Sunday, I think it's going to be more difficult for them. So I can see Stoke and Wolves fighting out for like 4th place.
Yeah.
And my expectation was that Calza and Hull City would go down, to be honest. But it's easy to say that. I don't know. That was my expectation at the start of the season. I do think Stourbridge will pick up results as the season progresses. But I think, as we talked about earlier, you're going to see a big gap. You kind of like one league of 3 or 4, and then a middle, and then 3 or 4 teams fighting it out. I mean, I felt for Jamie Lee on the start opening day, because it was her debut last season and we tanked them 7-0. And then she conceded more than that against, was it? We've already talked about this. I can't remember who they played. They played Burnley, didn't they?
Yeah, it was Rugby for Halifax, I believe.
Yeah, and then they scored loads against us. I fully felt for that. But I kind of just see the season to be sort of the table to be in 3 parts.
Yeah.
And that was
totally agree.
Unfortunate result against Hull at the weekend. But there's nothing to say you can't go to their place and win.
Definitely. I agree. I think you look at the teams around you. When we learned this last season, we was very lucky. Not but lucky. I think we've done very well to get a point away to Feds, 3 points against Albion, a point against Stoke, and all of a sudden these games added up. This year it's going to be even harder to get points from the mid-table sides. So I'm not even looking at the top sides. That massively is a bonus if we get something from there. So it is all about the teams around you. And we've kind of started off on the back foot there against Hull, but there's still 15 more points to get just from the teams around us. Just from the other.
Last year, wasn't it? 15. And that
was I got 16 last season. I don't think we need that much this season, if I'm honest. I can't imagine 2 other teams getting 13 points. I can imagine one of the bottom 4 getting more than 13 points, but I can't imagine 2 other teams getting 13 points or more. So I believe that if we can get 13, then that should be enough. And I know Clemens, our manager, he wants higher than that. He's openly said that he wants to be top half of the bottom half. I know I did an interview with a Calcer striker last week, and she said the same. Top half of the bottom half. But I think deep down these clubs should just be happy, in my opinion, just to stay in the league. It's such a big, there's such a big league. Let's not over exert ourselves. Stay in the league, but play in a very positive way. Let's have a bit of a cup run as well. If we can do well in one of the cups, then that's great. I don't think you need to go out there and say we need to finish 7th, 8th, or 9th, because I don't think you need to do that. I don't think you need to put that much pressure on yourself.
Well, if you think relatively across to the men's game, if you've gone up 4 divisions, or 3, even if you go 2, 3, or 4 divisions, it's very unlikely that's very unlikely that teams continue to do that, and then it takes long when you reach a ceiling, and then and there's no shame in that. And I've heard people say that you should aim for more than that, but in the same position, I would say the same thing. It's like if you found a level that's much more difficult than the previous 3 or 4, then
Mhm.
then there's patience for that. And being in this at this level, there's no shame in that.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't want it to come across like a failure as well. So if we don't get 7th, 8th, or 9th, then we get 10th. I don't want it to be seen as a failure season, because certainly not. You know, Kelso came into this league with a lot of momentum. We played Hull 2 years ago. I appreciate a lot's happened in 2 years, but Hull are no mugs. And Halifax finished in the like mid-table last year. I appreciate they've had a bad summer, and that's reflected this year. But to me, you know, you've got 4 teams down there who could all take points off each other. And, you know, if you can take more points than 2 of the others, then, you know, fantastic. And I think that's what we need to go for. And if we do end up finishing above all 3 and finishing 9th this year, then fantastic, you know. But I certainly wouldn't be putting pressure on saying, yes, we need to finish 9th and get more points than last year or anything like that. I don't think we need to do that. A lot's happened over the summer. So
There's no
that's my
benefit
opinion.
to
But
it either.
what's that, sorry?
There's no benefit to it either. It's not
No.
like when Forest went to the Premier League and that difference between 17th and 16th, what ended up in 16th, I think it was. There's millions of pounds at stake there. That one place, that 1 point is very valuable. But when you're playing in the sort of conditions that our league has on the sort of pitches and all of those things,
Yeah.
wouldn't be expecting my players to run themselves to the ground to get an extra point to finish 10th to 9th. I know that sounds really bad, but the league doesn't incentivize that.
Yeah.
And the
I think the
players
only advantage, from our point of view, that advantage would be is the progression on last season in regards to positions. But there's so many variables anyway. You know, this year we don't need to finish above 2 established tier 3 teams. You know, last year we did. We had to go finish above Fylde and Huddersfield, and Newcastle joined us, who ended up going full time anyway. Whereas this year, you know, all we need to do is stay above 2 newly promoted teams, and you know, Halifax is a bonus. What's happening there from a very selfish point of view as a Stourbridge fan, you know, that's a bonus for us. But yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns at the top and the bottom, and I think maybe both ends of the table could go down to the final few games, and that's what we want to see as fans.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
also in this league we haven't had a tier 2 side come down this season, have we? Because Lewis and Watford went into the
That's a
Southern.
good point. Yeah.
Rugby came over and they started really well, but they were not. I don't know if they were top 3 or not. I'm really educated.
I think it was 3rd or 4th last year. Yeah, he was right. Yeah,
we didn't win it, so we haven't. So the team we've gained this season is on paper less intimidating than Lewis or Watford. I know they've had difficult. I know Lewis had a difficult summer, but on paper you would expect them to be a bigger threat.
Yeah. Totally agree, and I'm enjoying watching it. There's so many little storylines and plots throughout the whole league, and then obviously you got your cup games to look forward to as well. So, yeah, are you looking forward to the game on Sunday?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I think that's something on our latest pod. I think what we talked about is the anticipation that we've got for games now.
Yeah,
and the anticipation to see the standards of the team being set and being raised. Carly, I really rate Carly as a coach. She always wants higher standards for the team. She'll always push players that have played at a high level, like Nat Johnson and Charlie Welling. So we want to push them. Nat talked about becoming a better player under Carly, and I think now the shadow of Andy Cook has moved a little bit. I think Carly can more come into her own right and get more credit for the job that she's done. And I really support her, and I'm really looking forward to Sunday. I mean, my daughter, she loves Stourbridge anyway, so she'll be excited. She stole my cup off me. I don't have the Stourbridge cup anymore. It's hers. But I'm really looking forward to it. But I don't say that, and I genuinely don't say that from the perspective I'm looking forward to just going and tanking someone 8 or 9-0, because there's no fun in that.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it because I do have a lot of time for your fan base and the team, and I'm looking forward to watching our standards raised. But it's not about this. Like, a cricket score, because
Yeah.
it might not even be that. So
We've done well. We've done well now. We only conceded 4 against Wolves and 3 against Burnley. So yeah, you never know.
It's just say that because I say that because it's easy in someone in a Forest position now to say you're excited because you can rock up to Sporting Calvary and score 7 past them. And from a fan, once you've scored 3 or 4, it doesn't get much more fun after 5 or 6. That matters for the goal difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's because it's Stourbridge. I have a lot of time for that. Time for Stourbridge, so I'm looking forward to it. And I'll probably hear you guys anyway if you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure when you come to more games, well, we'll welcome you over here, and I'm looking forward to it.
We'll be there.
Ollie, thank you very much for joining me, Ollie. I think it's been great, and like I say, we've been chatting for a good amount of time now, so it's good to be able to do this. And shout out your fan channel on Forest. So how can people find you and your social media and your platforms?
Yeah, so if you can, the Forest Women Fancast can be found on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and any mainstream podcast channel platform. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's Forest Women Cast, and that's the sort of, because we're new, that's the main social media channel we're using at the moment. We're trying to expand that more, and if we can get more people involved. But then you find us on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Twitter. You'll find us on there.
Excellent. Look, thank you once again, and I'm going to let you enjoy your night now.
Cheers, John.
And
Take care,
yeah, I'll see you again soon. See you, mate.
Yeah, definitely. See ya.